Projected 30% economic growth in 2025, implications for agriculture, manufacturing, and trade sectors. Overview. The U.S. economy is projected to experience a significant 30% growth by 2025, creating a landscape ripe with opportunities and challenges across various sectors, particularly agriculture, manufacturing, and trade. This report synthesizes insights from multiple sources to outline the expected impacts, including trade dynamics, policy implications, and sector-specific outlooks. Economic growth and agricultural trade outlook. Projected growth in exports. A report by Ag America indicates that U.S. agricultural exports are set to reach $170 billion in fiscal year 2025, marking a slight increase from earlier predictions. The livestock and dairy sectors are the primary drivers of this growth, with beef and dairy products expected to lead the way. Meanwhile, subsectors like oilseed and cotton are facing hurdles, suggesting a mixed outlook for agriculture. Trade deficit concerns. The USDA predicts a widening agricultural trade deficit, projected to surpass $42 billion. This increase is primarily attributed to a surge in agricultural imports expected to reach $215.5 billion. The demand for horticultural products is a key factor, alongside a decline in exports to China and domestic challenges such as droughts. Policy implications and tariff strategies. Incoming administration's policies. With the transition to a new administration, aggressive tariff strategies are anticipated. Notable appointments, including Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary, suggest a protectionist stance. Proposed tariffs include a 25% levy on imports from Canada and Mexico and a 10% tariff on Chinese goods, which could profoundly affect U.S. agricultural trade. Effects of proposed tariffs. These tariffs could disrupt existing trade agreements, particularly the USMCA, and lead to retaliatory measures from trade partners. While tariffs may incentivize domestic production, they also risk inflationary pressures and increased costs for farmers reliant on imports. Discussions on renewing support programs like the Market Facilitation Program (MFP) are underway to cushion potential impacts on farm incomes. Sector-specific insights. 1. Agriculture. The agricultural sector stands at a crossroads of potential growth and risk. While exports to Mexico and Canada are increasing, a decline in exports to China presents challenges. Farmers are encouraged to diversify their markets and advocate for favorable policies to mitigate risks. 2. Manufacturing. The manufacturing sector is expected to benefit from the anticipated growth, as domestic investment may rise due to tariffs making imported goods more expensive. This could create opportunities for U.S. manufacturers, although it may lead to higher costs for consumers. 3. Trade environment. The trade landscape is poised for turbulence as new tariffs take effect. Producers must prepare for cost fluctuations and potential revenue impacts, highlighting the importance of staying informed and adaptable to evolving trade policies. Conclusion and recommendations. As the U.S. economy approaches a projected 30% growth in 2025, the repercussions for agriculture, manufacturing, and trade sectors are significant. While opportunities for export growth exist, particularly in livestock and dairy, the looming trade deficit and potential tariffs pose substantial risks. Stakeholders are advised to diversify markets, engage in policy discussions, and prepare for disruptions in the agricultural landscape. By remaining proactive and informed, the agricultural community can navigate challenges and capitalize on opportunities for sustainable growth. Detailed insights from sources. 1. Source 1, Ag America Report. According to Ag America, agricultural trade remains a backbone of the U.S. economy, and the latest USDA forecasts reveal both opportunities and challenges. Key highlights include exports, an increase in exports driven by livestock and dairy, while oilseed and cotton face declines. Imports, a projected rise in imports, particularly for horticultural products, indicates increasing consumer demand and highlights the growing trade deficit. Trade partners, exports to Mexico and Canada are expected to rise, contrasting with a decline in exports to China. 2. Source 2, AgWeb Forecast. AgWeb's coverage of USDA forecasts emphasizes the implications of the projected trade deficit. Aggressive tariffs. The incoming administration's plans to implement substantial tariffs could drastically reshape agricultural trade dynamics. Market disruption risks. Potential destabilization of agreements like USMCA and retaliatory actions from trading partners could complicate the trade landscape. Support for farmers. The possibility of renewed government support programs illustrates the need for safety nets in a potentially volatile economic environment. Final thoughts. As we move toward 2025, the anticipated economic growth presents a complex interplay of opportunities and risks across the agricultural, manufacturing, and trade sectors. Stakeholders must remain vigilant and adaptive, utilizing available resources and support systems to navigate the shifting landscape effectively. The projected 30% economic growth in 2025 presents a paradoxical scenario for the U.S. agricultural, manufacturing, and trade sectors. While the overall growth statistic implies a robust economy, the nuanced realities within these sectors reveal counterintuitive implications that challenge traditional expectations. Economic growth versus agricultural trade deficit. One of the most striking contradictions lies in the projected agricultural trade deficit, which is expected to exceed $42 billion despite the anticipated economic growth. This counterintuitive trend suggests that even as the economy expands, the agricultural sector may struggle with external competitiveness. The USDA forecasts that agricultural imports will rise to $215.5 billion, driven by heightened consumer demand for imported horticultural products. This reflects an increasing dependency on foreign goods, even as domestic production may not keep pace with economic growth. Tariff strategies and domestic production. The incoming administration's aggressive tariff strategies introduce another layer of complexity. While tariffs are commonly viewed as protective measures intended to bolster domestic production, they could paradoxically lead to increased costs for consumers and farmers. The proposed 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico, alongside a 10% tariff on Chinese goods, could incentivize domestic manufacturing but might also inflate prices for agricultural inputs, machinery, and other essentials that farmers rely on. This creates a scenario where tariffs intended to promote domestic growth could actually hinder the agricultural sector's profitability and growth potential. Mixed outlook for agriculture. Within the agricultural sector itself, the growth forecast is mixed. The anticipated increase in agricultural exports to $170 billion is primarily driven by strong performance in livestock and dairy sectors, yet other sectors such as oilseeds and cotton are expected to decline. Thus, the overall growth in agricultural exports masks significant vulnerabilities in specific areas, highlighting the uneven impact of economic conditions across subsectors. Consumer demand versus declining export markets. Another counterintuitive aspect is the relationship between consumer demand and export markets. While consumer demand for imported agricultural products is rising, particularly in horticulture, this growth is juxtaposed with a decline in exports to China, one of the U.S.'s largest agricultural markets. The expectation that domestic consumer preferences will drive growth contrasts with the reality of shrinking international market access. This divergence points to a potential structural imbalance in the agricultural economy, where domestic consumption does not necessarily translate into robust export performance. The role of policy and market diversification. The implications of policy decisions also reveal counterintuitive insights. Policymakers may assume that protective tariffs will safeguard U.S. farmers and stimulate local economies. But the reality may be more detrimental. The anticipated market disruptions could undermine established trade agreements and create retaliatory measures from trading partners, ultimately harming the very sectors the tariffs aim to protect. Moreover, stakeholders are encouraged to diversify their markets as a response to these uncertainties. On the surface, this advice seems straightforward, but it highlights an inherent contradiction: the necessity of broadening trade relationships in a context where trade barriers are intensifying. This dynamic encourages a proactive approach, yet the underlying volatility complicates the feasibility of such strategies. Conclusion: as the U.S. approaches projected economic growth in 2025, the implications for agriculture, manufacturing, and trade sectors reveal a host of counterintuitive realities. The anticipated agricultural trade deficit, the paradox of tariffs, mixed export performance, and the complexities of consumer demand all suggest that growth does not uniformly translate into positive outcomes across sectors. Stakeholders must navigate this intricate landscape, balancing opportunities for growth with the risks of increased costs, market volatility, and shifting trade dynamics. The challenge lies not only in capitalizing on growth but also in mitigating the uncertainties that threaten to undermine it. The report highlights several significant points regarding the projected 30% economic growth in 2025 and its implications for the agriculture, manufacturing, and trade sectors. Here are the important content aspects that are likely to be overlooked and their significance. 1. The mixed outlook for agriculture. While the report emphasizes a projected increase in agricultural exports to $170 billion, it also details a troubling widening of the agricultural trade deficit, expected to exceed $42 billion. This mixed outlook is significant because it underscores a potential vulnerability in the agricultural sector. The net increase in exports does not tell the whole story, as it masks the fact that the U.S. is heavily reliant on imports due to domestic challenges such as droughts and shifts in consumer preferences. The significance lies in the fact that the agricultural trade deficit reflects a systemic issue within the U.S. agricultural economy. It suggests that while some sectors may thrive, others are struggling, which could lead to uneven growth and potential instability in the agricultural market. Farmers may need to adapt by diversifying their crops or exploring new markets to sustain growth. 2. Implications of incoming tariff policies. The report notes that a new administration is expected to implement aggressive tariff strategies, including proposed tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China. This aspect is critical as it indicates a shift towards protectionism, which could drastically alter trade dynamics. Most people may overlook the broader implications of these tariffs. While they may be seen as a way to protect domestic industries, such measures could lead to retaliatory tariffs from trading partners, exacerbating the trade deficit and causing price increases for consumers. The risk of escalation in trade tensions could also hinder the U.S. agricultural sector's ability to compete internationally. Understanding the potential for retaliatory measures is crucial for stakeholders in agriculture, as it may lead to a long-term decline in market access and competitiveness. 3. Sector-specific challenges and opportunities. The detailed insights into specific sectors, agriculture, manufacturing, and trade, reveal that growth is not uniform across these areas. For instance, while livestock and dairy are projected to grow, sectors like oilseed and cotton are anticipated to face declines. This sector-specific analysis is significant because it emphasizes that growth in one area does not guarantee overall economic health. Stakeholders should be aware that while there are opportunities in certain markets, others may experience downturns that could affect supply chains, farmer income, and employment. The ability to pivot and adapt to these changes is crucial for sustainability. 4. Consumer demand and its impact on imports. The report highlights an increasing consumer demand for horticultural products, driving up agricultural imports. This trend is significant as it suggests a shift in consumer preferences towards fresh produce and specialty items. However, it also raises concerns about the U.S. agricultural sector's reliance on foreign products, which could threaten domestic producers. Most readers may overlook this point, but understanding consumer trends is vital for farmers and manufacturers to align their production strategies accordingly. It highlights the importance of innovation and adaptation to meet changing consumer demands while ensuring competitiveness in the global market. 5. Potential for inflationary pressures. The report discusses the possibility of inflationary pressures resulting from proposed tariffs. This aspect is significant as it not only affects farmers and producers but also consumers who may face higher prices for goods. The potential for inflation can lead to broader economic implications impacting consumer spending and overall economic growth. Stakeholders should be aware of how inflation can influence market dynamics and consumer behavior, potentially leading to shifts in demand that could affect agricultural production strategies. 6. Federal government support mechanisms. With the potential for tariffs to impact farm revenues, the report suggests that the government may renew support programs like the Market Facilitation Program (MFP). This point is often overlooked but is crucial as it indicates a reliance on federal support to stabilize the agricultural sector in times of trade uncertainty. Understanding the role of government support mechanisms is essential for farmers and agricultural stakeholders. It highlights the importance of policy advocacy and engagement with government agencies to ensure that necessary support is available during challenging economic times. 7. The importance of diversified markets. The report emphasizes the need for agricultural producers to diversify their markets to mitigate risks associated with trade policies and market fluctuations. This recommendation is significant because it speaks to the resilience and adaptability of the agricultural sector. Many producers may overlook the importance of market diversification, focusing instead on established trade relationships. However, in an increasingly volatile trade environment, the ability to adapt and explore new markets can be a determining factor for long-term sustainability and growth. Engaging with emerging markets can provide new opportunities and reduce dependence on any single market. 8. Long-term strategic planning. Finally, the report highlights the importance of strategic planning among producers to manage risks associated with trade turbulence. This aspect is significant because it calls for a proactive approach rather than a reactive one. Producers should be encouraged to develop long-term strategies that account for potential disruptions in trade and market access. This includes financial planning, exploring alternative funding sources, and preparing for shifts in consumer demand. By taking a proactive stance, stakeholders can better position themselves to navigate uncertainties and leverage opportunities in a changing economic landscape. Conclusion. The projected 30% economic growth in 2025 presents both opportunities and challenges across the agricultural, manufacturing, and trade sectors. By focusing on the often overlooked aspects of the report, such as the mixed outlook for agriculture, the implications of tariff policies, sector-specific challenges, consumer demand trends, potential inflationary pressures, government support mechanisms, the importance of diversified markets, and the need for long-term strategic planning, stakeholders can better understand the complexities of the upcoming economic landscape and make informed decisions to navigate it successfully. 1. Economic growth and agricultural trade outlook. The projected 30% economic growth in 2025 is expected to significantly impact U.S. agricultural exports, which may reach $170 billion, primarily driven by the livestock and dairy sectors. However, the anticipated widening agricultural trade deficit, expected to exceed $42 billion, raises concerns about the sustainability of this growth. Key challenges include reduced exports to China, increased agricultural imports driven by consumer demand, and domestic production issues such as droughts. This situation underscores the importance of diversifying markets and minimizing trade barriers to maintain a positive trade balance. 2. Policy implications and tariff strategies. The incoming administration's proposed aggressive tariff strategies could alter the landscape of U.S. agricultural trade. Tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China may disrupt existing trade agreements and lead to market instability. While some stakeholders believe these tariffs could incentivize domestic production and improve trade deals, others warn of inflationary pressures and higher costs for farmers reliant on imported goods. The agricultural sector must adapt to these potential changes through proactive market strategies and policy engagement. 3. Sector-specific insights. Each sector, agriculture, manufacturing, and trade, faces unique challenges and opportunities due to the projected economic growth and changing trade policies. The agricultural sector must navigate the dual challenges of increased export potential and trade deficits. While the manufacturing sector may benefit from reduced competition from imports due to tariffs, the overall trade environment is expected to become more volatile, emphasizing the need for producers to prepare for cost fluctuations and adapt to changing conditions. 4. Conclusion and recommendations. As the U.S. approaches significant economic growth, stakeholders in agriculture, manufacturing, and trade must remain vigilant and proactive, which contributed to a significant decline in international trade and worsened the global economic situation. The Smoot-Hawley tariff is often cited as a historical example of how protectionist measures can lead to negative economic consequences. 2. The Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933. This New Deal legislation aimed to boost agricultural prices by reducing surpluses. The government paid farmers to cut back on production, which created a price increase for crops and livestock. While it helped many farmers, it also led to debates over government intervention in the economy and the long-term impact of such policies on agricultural trade and rural economies. 3. NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement of 1994. This agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico aimed to eliminate trade barriers and promote economic integration. While it succeeded in increasing trade among the three countries, it also led to significant shifts in the U.S. agricultural sector, including increased exports of corn and other crops to Mexico. However, it also sparked controversy regarding job losses in certain manufacturing sectors and debates over the impacts on local economies. The projected 30% economic growth for the United States in 2025 is set to have far-reaching consequences across various sectors, especially agriculture, manufacturing, and trade. Here's an overview of the implications for these sectors based on current insights. Agriculture sector outlook. 1. Export projections. The U.S. agricultural exports are expected to rise to approximately $170 billion in FY 2025, primarily driven by increased demand for livestock and dairy products. This represents a slight improvement from previous forecasts, with beef and dairy leading the growth. 2. Trade deficit concerns. The USDA projects that the agricultural trade deficit could exceed $42 billion, fueled by rising imports that may reach $215.5 billion. The demand for horticultural products is a major factor driving these imports. However, external factors such as droughts and reduced exports to China could exacerbate the trade gap. 3. Market diversification. Given the decline in exports to China, farmers are encouraged to diversify their markets to mitigate risks. The anticipated increases in exports to Mexico and Canada provide some optimism, but the overall mixed outlook necessitates strategic planning. Manufacturing sector implications. 1. Domestic investment growth. The manufacturing sector stands to benefit from the anticipated economic growth, especially as trade policies evolve. Proposed tariffs could lead to increased costs for imported goods, prompting manufacturers to invest more in domestic production capabilities. 2. Consumer pricing pressures. While tariffs may protect domestic jobs, they could also lead to higher prices for consumers. This inflationary pressure may challenge manufacturers to maintain competitive pricing while ensuring profitability. 3. Supply chain adjustments. Businesses may need to re-evaluate their supply chains in response to new tariffs, potentially seeking local suppliers to mitigate costs. This shift could foster innovation and resilience in domestic manufacturing. Trade dynamics. 1. Tariff strategies. The incoming administration's aggressive tariff strategies, including proposed tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China, are likely to reshape the trade landscape. While some argue these tariffs could bolster domestic industries, they may also disrupt existing trade agreements like the USMCA. 2. Increased volatility. The trade environment is expected to become more volatile with potential retaliatory measures from trading partners. Producers and businesses will need to prepare for fluctuations in costs and revenues. Emphasizing the importance of strategic planning. 3. Engagement and advocacy. Stakeholders in the agricultural and manufacturing sectors are urged to engage in policy discussions and advocacy efforts to influence trade negotiations. Building relationships with lawmakers and industry groups will be crucial in shaping favorable trade policies. Conclusion and strategic recommendations. As the U.S. economy anticipates significant growth in 2025, the implications for agriculture, manufacturing, and trade are profound. Key recommendations for stakeholders include: diversifying markets. Producers should explore new markets and reduce dependency on vulnerable trading partners to mitigate risks associated with shifting trade policies. Staying informed. Continuous monitoring of trade relations and policy developments will be essential for adapting business strategies and ensuring competitiveness. Engaging in advocacy. Participation in policy discussions can help amplify the voices of farmers and manufacturers, ensuring that their concerns are addressed in trade negotiations. Preparing for changes. Businesses should plan for potential cost increases and revenue fluctuations by leveraging federal support programs and maintaining flexible financing options. In summary, while the projected economic growth presents opportunities for expansion in agriculture and manufacturing, the accompanying risks necessitate proactive and informed strategies to navigate the evolving trade landscape effectively. Stakeholders must remain vigilant and adaptable to thrive in this dynamic environment.